Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on the irlonestar.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour. I'm Rick Schissler. I'm your host. I'm also a Silver Fox advisor and the founder of OneBestConsult.com. And we're broadcasting today live from the studios of Lone Star Community Radio, located right here in Conroe, Texas, and in Montgomery County. Conroe and the Montgomery area are one of the fastest growing parts of America these days, and boy, you can tell it with the traffic just getting to the studio today. It's amazing, but that's what growth is all about, pain with hopefully more gain. Hope things are good in your world. If you're listening, hope you got a great week planned, and hopefully we can provide you with some information, some ideas that potentially could work for you even today to improve your business and your position in the business itself. There's a idea out there that, the uncertainty that we're all dealing with, folks kind of draw back, right? That's a human natural reaction. I pull back with uncertainty in front of me. I mean, we've had a pandemic, but now it's not a pandemic. COVID shots, well, don't take the shots. I mean, and it goes on. And from a business perspective, tremendous influx of inflation. And I happen to believe we haven't seen the worst of it yet as far as the amount of it. It's going through the system right now, and I think we're going to be surprised, particularly as consumers. And then there's talk of recession. Each week goes by, people like Citibank project, I think I read over the weekend, 70% chance of having a recession based on the information they have at hand. So we got all this uncertainty. And one of the things that I always kind of flinch at or disappointed is that when we face uncertainty in our businesses, we draw back and then we don't open our minds anymore. We don't look for ideas that really could help us in the current situation. And one of those ideas is, do you have a product or service that potentially could be exported? A lot of small businesses have products or even services that could be sold overseas. And they don't ever attempt to do it because it's a very complex, complicated, confusing world. They don't know a lot about it. And I get that. That's true. There's a whole new ballgame. So why should I even bother? And then getting paid, big issue of concern for obvious reasons. We want to get paid for our labors, no doubt about it. But I encourage the listeners today, check out if you've got something you could sell overseas, perhaps tap into a new market, bring in some revenue. Perhaps you've lost some revenue. Perhaps you're growing or you're not, but bring more revenue to your firm. And of course, profitable revenue. That's important. But you can go online, smallbusinessadministration.org or SBA.org, and they've got a whole slew of programs, grants that they make to locales, to cities and states to set up these small business opportunity zones and different things like that. Check it out, though. Go to SBA.org. One of the things I think is really cool is the STEP program, and that stands for State Trade Expansion Program, STEP. And they being the SBA, provide matching funds to states, territories, if they'll participate in just promotional activities. And I know here in the Houston area that there are these promotional, like trade missions. You hear about them on the news every once in a while. Workshops, export exhibitions that will show you how you can export, and it's really not that difficult. So again, go to SBA.gov, look at the information. They've got people you can talk to And if you've never used the SBA, yes, it's a government organization, so it takes a little special patience, but it may be the opportunity that your business needs right now. And who knows, it may open a door that really, really changes the face of your business in a very positive way. Well, Montgomery County and now places around the world, businesses around the world, come to the weekly business hour to learn about the business ideas, what's going on in the business world, how to improve their business, and hopefully take part in these conversations that can make a real difference in their business. So we encourage you, if you have an idea, observation, a criticism of the show, email me. Just send it to bestconsult, that's the number 1, bestconsult@gmail.com. I love getting that mail. We even have a mailbag that we pick particular inquiries, questions about their business. In fact, we have a good one later in the show today that I think hopefully you'll find very, very interesting. Well, I want to let you know, today we have a very special guest. At least I consider him very special. He's been on the show before. We're welcoming back Mr. Mel Kleiman. Mel was the founder of Humetrics some 40 plus years ago. And I've known Mel personally about that amount of time because I got interested in the job and I was working in a family business in what they had to offer at Humetrics. And Mel has expanded and grown that business. He serves companies all over the United States. I didn't ask him if maybe overseas, but he provides a wonderful insight. I think he's one of the leading experts, quite frankly, on locating, finding, attracting, interviewing, and hiring the right people for the jobs that you have open. And he has some interesting comments about how to do that even today in this real tight business market. So we had a conversation recently, and we're going to play that conversation for you. And I think the most important thing you can do right now, grab a pad, grab a pen, or fire up your computer. Get ready to take notes, because there are definitely some ideas that Mel talks about today that can help your business right now. Right now. Don't wait. Make it happen. So listen and hear my recent conversation with Mr. Mel Kleinman, and we talked about attracting the best people for your jobs. We're back on the road again. We're reaching out to people who are what I call smart people. And today I feel excited. That's the only word I can say, to have this guest with us, Mr. Mel Kleiman. His company is Humetrics, and he's come up with a program. I think the last time, Mel, you were on with us earlier this year, we kind of touched on it, but it sounds like from the conversations that you and I've had that it's really starting to take off. I think it's got some tremendous elements in it for people, small business, medium business, large business, any size business. And let's talk about it today. Let's talk about the 5-star employer program, Mel. Kind of give us a broad brush of what it's all about, if you will, to get started.
So, Rick, it's interesting that you talk about, when I thought about this presentation today and I thought about talking to the group, I have to tell you that a couple of quotes came to mind, and I've got hundreds of quotes that relate to better hiring or staffing, but I happened to think about two that just popped into my mind almost instantaneously. One is a quote by Sam Walton, interestingly enough, and I think I don't have to define who Sam Walton is. But you know what? Pretty soon, with the generational differences out there, we're going to have to even identify Sam Walton as the founder of Walmart, because there are probably a whole bunch of people out there who don't know even who he is today. But Sam Walton said, the most important decision a manager makes every single day is who he allows in the door to help him take care of his customer. And I think that has to expand upon, when you talk about customers, you don't only talk about external customers, but you talk about internal customers. So he's really saying that the most important decision we make is who are the people we bring on board and how do we keep them and what we do it. The other one is, again, somebody that I think maybe we're going to have to update my models, because it happened to be Herb Keller, and, you know, founder of Southwest Airlines. Well, you and I say Herb Keller, you say, okay, I got it. And people are out there probably saying, but I think you have to recognize that Southwest Airlines changed the whole way that the industry did business. And And it was a people first culture and he's the one that said, and Herb Keller was this in your face kind of guy. And he said that bluntly, the day we screw up, the people think it's all over. And I think that really sums it up. So for years, I've talked about in my presentations, I used to talk about turkeys and eagles. If you hire a turkey, train a turkey, motivate a turkey, all you have is trained, motivated turkeys. And I talk about turkeys learning to dress up like eagles and eagles not always being eagles and everything else. But I guess about a year ago, I began to think about this thing called, what kind of an employer are you? And I began to ask the question, and I ask it to everybody I talk to and everybody I work with and the people I consult with, do you consider yourself a 5-star employer? And I think everybody listening to this, you need to answer that question. I have to back off a little bit though and say, not only do you consider yourself a 5-star, but I have to say that in some cases, do you consider yourself either a 4 or 5-star employer? And the reason I have to back off a little bit is because there are a lot of people out there who are absolutely great employers, but they think they can always get better. And I think we all need to look at that. And I think we all need to think about that. We can always get better. So they would think they're 4-star, but they're not 5-star. But in reality, compared to the rest of the world, hey, they're 5-star. It's like a simple exercise that I do sometimes that is interesting. When you say to people, raise your hand as high as you possibly can, and they raise it this high. If I said to you, and if you're listening to this, raise your hand as high as you can, you raise it this high. And then I said, okay, raise it higher. You know what? They can get it higher. And if I said even raise it higher than that, they can still do it. They got to stretch. Well, I got to tell you, when you look at companies, you want to look at companies. So I'm asking you out there, are you a 4 or 5-star employer? Okay. If you're a 4 or 5-star employer, then this session is there to help you maybe even get even better. If you're not a 4 or 5-star employer, I have a real quick question to ask you. Why should an all-star player come to play on your team? The important thing you've got to look at is being an all-star employer. Okay. So how do you become an all-star employer? What is a 5-star employer? You got to remember 3 things. People come, all-star players, A players, whatever you want to call them, stars. They come to work for you because they want to. They leave because they can. And they say because you help them get better. And if you as a company are doing, you got to remember that in all your hiring, wherever you are in this scale, wherever you think you are, you have to continue to look at, you got to remember people come to work because they want to. And they leave because they can. Your stars have people calling them every day saying, hey, come to work for me. I go to I work in the restaurant business a lot, and I have a couple of restaurant groups I work with, and I go out to dinner my wife and I have given up cooking. I think she put a sign that says kitchen closed and we haven't opened it except for holidays. I think you're laughing because you probably around your house do the same thing. But the point being is we go out, and it's instantaneously, when you get a great server. It's not the one who just comes up and says, my name is John and I'm here to help you. It's the one who comes up with a smile on the face and makes you feel like you're important. And, I often say to these people, hey, wow, I love the great service. I just got to ask for you, I've got a restaurant group I'm working for, and I know they would love to have you. Would you be interested? It is amazing how many people would be interested. And every once in a while, I get the one who says, no, I love my job. How many of your employees say, no, I love my job? So that's the key. So we talk about if you are a 5-star employer, and the program I'm building, and this is a sales pitch. I'm gonna get a sales pitch, and we're gonna get it out of the way, and it's done, Rick. If you're a 5-star employer and are interested in being certified a 5-star employer, at the end of this, I'll give you my contact information. Reach out to me, because being recognized as a 5-star, what is the number one motivator in the entire world? And this is something you can use, and we'll talk about a little later in this presentation. Number one motivator in the entire world is recognition. People love recognition. We are recognition addicted. recognizing people by saying, hey, if you need a great employee and you see somebody out there and say, hey, you did a great job, I'd love to come to work for them. Nobody ever felt bad getting a job offer. You recognize them as being good. Okay, if you're a 5-star employer, how about being recognized as a 5-star employer? You know what? Raise your hand. What does it say to your employees if you're recognized as a 5-star employer? What does it say to your customers when you're recognized as a 5-star employer? What does it say to potential applicants when you're recognized as a 5-star employer? So if anybody's interested in doing that, come talk to me. But let's talk about, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about how do you become a 5-star employer? If you're not, if you are, how do you even get better? So we talked about the fact, number one, Rick, that you want to hire a 5-star employee. So the question is, why should a 5-star employer come to work for you? Why should an all-star player join your team? Do you have if you get nothing else out of this webinar, if you do anything because you're here, which will make you better, you have to come up with a list, which I call a unique employment proposition. What is the reason that a great employee should come to work for? Do you have a list? If you don't have a list, where do you expect that potential applicant to have a list? And I will tell you, most companies don't have a list. Now, in your consulting business, you would probably talk about not only a unique employment proposition, but I will bet you talk to every one of your clients and talk about what is your unique selling proposition, right?
Absolutely.
And what are we talking about? Why should I as a customer come to work, buy from you? You ask yourself when you do this broadcast, and I know you look at the speakers you bring on, what is your unique selling proposition? Why should somebody take an hour out of their day, an hour out of their week, and actually spend it listening to what you do? And I think we know what, you require the speakers you bring on board to give people things they can use to help them be better. That's your unique selling proposition.
Absolutely.
So, you give them access to information and knowledge that they can't get anywhere else. You make it easy for them to apply. So let's look at why should I do business with you? That's the question you ask on one side, but let's ask it on the other side that most of us never do. What's the reason that I should be an employee? And for different companies, that's different. It's interesting when we built this recognizing companies as 5-star employer, we recognize that there are a lot of other people out there doing it. There's great place to work. There's best place to work. There's top place to work. And all of them have a formula. They say, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? We found out something different. We found out that different companies are top employers, are 5-star employers because they appeal to a particular audience and market, and they supply what that market wants. For example, I have a trucking company. The number one thing on their why people come to work for them is because it isn't safe, we don't do it. Safety is number one. And what do? They haul hazardous fuel. And you know what? Drivers come to them because, hey, you know what? If it isn't safe, we don't do it. That's the number one key in their unique employment proposition. Have you looked at who is that target customer being employee that you want to come work for you? I have another group. I have a group that's it's a beauty salon. And the number one reason people come to work for them is not because they pay a lot of money, because they don't pay a lot of money. There are probably places they could potentially go initially, they can go more money. But the fact of the matter is you come to work for them because we will train you so well that you can leave. And her whole scopus is she brings in, people come to her direct out of beauty school. You know what you can do direct out of beauty school? You can go to work for Sports Clips. You can go for Supercuts. You can go to somebody who takes a pair of shears and goes, shh, 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 you're cut. Or you become a stylist. Do you want to be a hair cutter or you do want to be a stylist? If you want to be a stylist, you go to work for her. Why do you go for her to work? Because in 3 years, if you follow what she tells you to do, you will come from a level 1 stylist to a level 5 stylist. She trains, she trains, she trains. That's why you go to work for her. She has people who don't want to cut hair. She has people come to work that want to be a stylist. What is your unique employment proposition? You know, is it safety? Is it training? Is it leadership? Is it striving to be better? Can you write a list of the top 5 things that people should come to work for you? It is the most important thing you do if you want, because that becomes, you know, that defines your culture. Our culture is one of training. Our culture is one of learning. Our culture is one of respect. You come to work for us because we're a family-friendly environment. I have one customer who gave me their unique employment proposition. It had 2 words on it. It said, "We care." But you know what it said after that? We care about our employees. We care about our community. We care about our environment. We care about our social responsibility. You want to go to work for them? They may not pay the most money. And I do have one customer, I got to tell you, they are a rotten place to work. They are not, but you know what? They don't have work-life balance. Okay? They put in long hours, they put in hard hours, they do difficult things. You know why people come to work for them? Real simple. We pay a lot of money. If your drive is specifically you want to make a lot of money and you got the skills they want, you go to work for them. That's their unique. They can sum it up. We pay a lot of money. But I'll tell you what, you're going to work 70, 80, 90-hour weeks. You're going to be on a plane this week and going someplace next week, and we may give you 1 hour's notice before you pack up and go someplace else. What's your unique employment proposition? Build that. It's the most important thing you do if you want to become a 5-star employer. When you build, and how do you build? Let me tell you how to build it. It's really easy. And in building it, you get a great benefit. The way to build it is you go to your best people and you ask them, why do you work here? What makes you stay? No? What do we do that you love? What gets you excited about getting out of bed in the morning? What's the, you know, by the way, you better show us the other question. You do stay conversations. Just starting to do stay conversations is going to make you a better 5-star employer. But do you do 5? But go ask your people. Ask your best. In fact, when we certify people as 5-star employers, one of the things we make them do is we make them go, we say, go to your best people and say, hey, Rick, you know, you're one of the reasons we're great. You're the person who makes us great. We need more people like you. Rick, would you tell us why you work here? Would you tell you what gets you out of bed in the morning and get you excited to come here? Did I just not pay him a compliment by telling him he's important? Did I not pay him a compliment by saying I need your help? Doing that alone is worth the price because it costs you nothing to do it and it costs you nothing to apply, but just asking that to your employees, even now, saying, hey, we want to get back. I need more people like you. Tell me why you get here. Tell me why you stay. That starts K conversations. You just gave that man a compliment. You recognized him. So you do that. That's why you build a unique employment proposition. That's how you do it. Once you build it, what you've just done is something that most companies haven't done a great job of. They define their culture. It really tells you what their culture is. You defined it. That's the third benefit. Let me tell you the fourth benefit. You have one of the best interviewing questions you will ever have. Because if I'm looking to hire somebody, I take that list and I put in front of them and say, you know, Rick, here are the top 5 reasons. Here are the top 7 reasons. I don't care how many things on the, here are the top reasons that our employees come to work for us. And here's why they stay and here's what they like. Let me ask you a question. Of all the things on this list, which one is most important to you? Which of those items is most important to you? What did they just tell you? They told you their key motivator. They told you the key work-life balance. You know, they told you that's what they want. Opportunity to grow and learn. Challenges. Great supervision. They tell you what you want and all you did. Those are just three of the benefits of developing that unique employment proposition. It helps you identify who you are. It helps you identify great employees. It helps you retain the employees you have. Oh, and one last benefit, post it on the wall. Post it on the back of every manager's door, because it tells that manager what he needs to do to make sure that you stay a 5-star employer. So that's a little bit to start with. You have any thoughts or questions at this point?
Well, one observation, and you went through it, but I hope the listener picks this up is, and again, you said it somewhat quickly, when you approach this whole challenge of becoming a 5-star employer, how to set it up, how to come up with the ideas that, what is your selling proposition or employment proposition, is that you, as an employer, step back and look at your employees, your potential employees, as customers. And you use that word, and I think that kind of puts me in the right state of mind versus I'm overpaying, I'm underpaying, I can't give this benefit. I find particularly small employers spend a lot of time agonizing over the cost and not the value of that employee. And the fact that I can step back and say, hey, these are really customers. What can I do? And then start going through the process that you just outlined. I think gives me a much different perspective.
I miss you. So what are you asking me?
Not really asking. I'm just making an observation of what you said, and something that you went through. And it was, I want to make sure our listeners pick up on that. It requires a little bit of a reset, if you will, when I approach this whole project of how I look at my employees and my potential employees. And I like the idea that you use the word customer, and because we look at customers different in most cases than employees.
Well, we do this. Supposedly everything's out. There's a survey of your customers. We continually survey our customers that, the number one survey out there today, which is, we can have a long discussion on it, is this scale from 0 to 10. How would you rank it? Would you refer us to other people? The net promoter score is what it's called. But, it's that question, it's like, if you want to know if you're a 5-star employer, I'll tell you number one qualification to be a 5-star employer. What percentage of your employees come from referral? What percentage of your employees come from referral from other employees? That's really the number one key, one of the number one keys to identifying if you're a 5-star employer. I will tell you that most great companies that I talk to that are 5-star will say somewhere like 30 to 35% of their people come from referral from others. Oh, by the way, little sideline. Anytime an employee gives you a referral, and we could spend this whole time talking about employee referral program, because that's absolutely the best source of great employees. Because number one, they know what they're getting into, and number two, they already have a friend at work. And most people don't do a great job on employee referral programs. But anytime an employee gives you a referral, I pick this one up. I love new ideas. I get excited when somebody gives me a new thought, a new quote, a new idea. And I'm sitting in a session, I can still remember to this day. And a woman said to me, every time somebody gives me a referral, I ask them a question. And that question, is this a referral or is that a recommendation? Think about the power of that question. Somebody refers you to a lawyer. You ask somebody about a referral to a lawyer or an accountant or a consultant or something else. And you say to them, let me ask you, is that a referral or are you actually recommending them? Think about the power of just that question.
Yeah, I did a referral the other day, and what I've done with my referrals to people, regardless of what it is, what type of person or service product is, that I absolutely follow up my recommendation or my referral, saying why I am referring them to. I've used them. I've known them for 20 years. I put something in there. So I guess my referrals tend to be more recommendations than that. And you make a great point with that. I got to share a quick story with you though about the employee referrals. I was some years ago, I was in a trade roundtable group, an industry roundtable group. And we had a member in that group who was from Hawaii, and his business was in Oahu, on the island there. And his referral rate, he had 100 plus employees doing manual labor for the most part. And his referral rate was over 50%, Mel. And you stop and you say, whoa, how do you do that, right? Well, in Hawaii, you may know this, if you're dealing with the local population, the true Hawaiians, big families. So what they were doing were referring their family to these jobs because he had created this family atmosphere. Of course, the only downside was when some family event occurred, such as a death or this, that, you might lose 4, 5, 6 employees for the day, but that was his source, the core of his employees.
It's like on the list, family-friendly environment.
Absolutely. And a ready source of potential employees. So anyway, it can work in many different ways.
So
let me ask you a quick question. One of the points you've made to me on the 5-star is to know what an employee does or what they look like, if you will, in the broad sense, as a 5-star employee. In other words, what do they do to help you earn the 5-star? How can I identify someone that I'm considering bringing on to the business that they're going to be a 5-star and fit into our culture, assuming that we've reached that pinnacle of 5-star employer?
So let me back up to you mentioned the word, so let me build off that word. How do you identify a potential 5-star or employee? How do you identify one? The key to identifying it is you have to, let me use think about, I want to talk about a statement is missing the target has never been the target's fault. Okay. So you have to identify what makes a 5-star employee, what makes a superstar employee. Okay. And we have job descriptions. Sometimes if you're a small company, I'll be amazed if you really have a job description. But if you're a larger company's HR department, you've got a job description. They're government documents. They say you got to be able to lift 40 pounds, stand on 1 foot, hop down, That's a job. No. If you want to know what your 5-star employee will do, that all-star, I will tell you how to write a job description. I have just hired you, and it is 6 months down the road, and you have hit a home run. And I'm going to nominate you for the Employee of the Year award. And I need to write a letter of recommendation telling the board, because they're going to give away $1,000 to this employee, what that employee did and how they did it to earn that bonus, to earn that award. You write me the letter of recommendation saying this is what Joe did and this is how he did it and this is why he deserves to be an Employee of the Year. When you write that letter, you have literally defined what that success looks like. That's your real job description. You talk about how they related to the customer. You talked about how they went above and beyond. You talked about how they were a team player. You talk about the things they did. In fact, I will tell you, when you begin to look at people, most of us look for the wrong thing. We could do a whole program on interviewing, but most of us, when we interview for skills. Remember, you hire people for what they know, you end up firing them for who they are. Okay. I want people to, you know what? The knowledge you have today, the way the world is changing and the way work is changing, this skill you have today, 5 years from now, is going to be totally out of date. You got to hire people who want to learn and grow. If I was interviewing somebody, if I was being interviewed, the number one question I would be asking them when they say, ask me a question, I would ask them the question built off of what I just told you. And think about what would happen if an applicant said to you, okay, Rick, it's 6 months down the road and you hired me and I've hit a home run. I've exceeded your expectations. What have I done to exceed your expectations, and how have I done it? That tells you what that employee needs to do. They've exceeded your expectations. What did they do, and how did they do it? And by the way, you know what? I'm going down different tangents. You hire that new employee, you know what you need to tell them? You need to tell them what it takes to be successful. You need to tell them, Rick, this is what you need to, let me tell you, I expect, I know you're going to hit a run. Let me tell you what you're going to do. Here's how we're going to grade you. Have you told your people how they're being graded? Okay. So build a unique employment proposition, but you said, okay, how do I get that? So you need that job description. You need that target. That's the number one thing you need to do. Okay. See, you've hired, so this isn't on interviewing, but you've got this person on your team. Okay. How do you keep them? How do you motivate them? How do you drive them? What are people looking for? And again, the number one, you talk about money. Money is not a motivator. Lack of money is a demotivator. Money is not the motivator. What is the driver behind people? Different people have different drivers. You manage, again, one-liner, write it down. You manage people the way they want to be managed and not the way you want to manage them. We don't manage generations, we manage individuals. What does that person want out of the job? If I was to sit here and give you a list of things that people want, I said, you know what they want? People want? I can tell you, they want great boss and great coworkers. They want interesting work. They want growth and opportunity. They want family-friendly environment. Now, in different order for different people. They want respect. Okay, these are things to be, but let me tell you what, and I could sell it to you, but I'm just going to give it to you right now, and hopefully you'll buy it. You know what the number one motivator really is in today's workforce? It's recognition. People want to be recognized. But the key is you have to recognize people the way they want to be recognized and not the way you want to recognize them. If I sit there and say, okay, you think about what do we are little kids in kids' bodies. People ask me what I want to be when I grow up. And I got the answer. I want to be a little kid in a big kid's body. But you talk about recognition. Think about it. My grandson was over a couple of weeks ago and he was building something with blocks in the other room. And I work out of my office at home. And he says, Pop, come look at this. This is neat. And I said, Cole, I'm busy. I'll be there in a minute. And about 36 seconds goes by and he says, Pop, come look at this now. And I said, Cole, give me a minute. Let me finish this. Maybe a minute later, and I'm still working away and getting it done. And I know better. I should have gone, but I didn't. All of a sudden, I hear a crash. Why did I hear the crash? Because there are three kinds of recognition. Positive recognition. Wow, great job. Super. What's the opposite of positive recognition? Negative recognition. What's the worst kind of recognition at all? None. What do you give your best employees? How much recognition do you give your best employees? If they're really good, you know what? You give them more work. How's that for recognition? You want to know why people retire in the job? Because I'm good, you give me more to do. You got wonderful Willie and miserable Marvin. And you got a project and you get a miserable Marvin can do it, but all miserable. Oh God, you always picking on me. Why do I get all the rotten jobs? Why don't you know what? Do you ever give it? No. But you got wonderful Willie. And you need him to stay late. You need him to do something special. You need something done. You got to get this report out. He never complains. He doesn't everything else. And one day he comes in and he says, I quit. And you say, why do you quit? Well, I'll tell you why he quit. You don't pay enough to do all the things that miserable Marvin will do. You give him negative recognition. or no recognition at all. When was the last time you wrote a note to your best employee, said, wow, I appreciate that? And be specific. When was the last time you actually wrote, not an email, actually wrote a note and handed it to somebody or put it on their paycheck? You know what? I've gotten lots of recognition letters in the past as a speaker, as an employee. I've never thrown one of them away. I went cleaning out files the other day, and I got to tell you, Rick, and you'll appreciate this because I work with you. I've been doing this for a long time, and I found notes and letters going back 45 years that I never threw out. The power of recognition. That's the power that keeps people on board. Give them a recognition. Can you tell me, I'll give you what? Can you tell me every one of your employees' favorite soft drink? Can you tell me their favorite candy bar? Can you tell me their favorite restaurant? Can you tell me pets? Can you tell me what their children's sports are? Can you tell me what they like to do on vacation? You like tell me what they do free time? You tell them what they do for fun? Can you tell me that about every one of your employees? I'll bet you can't. Why not? What we created is a tool, and by the way, if anybody that listens to this anytime in the future sends me a note and says, send this to them, I will. We created a thing called an employee data sheet. And we have every new employee fill out the data sheet. And it talks about their favorite candy bar and their favorite charity and their favorite sports team and what they like to do on vacation and what they do for fun. That's a good one. What do you do for fun? And they fill it out. And we have what? Somebody does something special, we go out and look at it. Or we got a remote employee, we work with it. Okay, I have to tell you one really neat story. One of the things we added during the pandemic is what's your favorite pet? And one of the employees put on their favorite pet's an iguana. And it says, tell us about your pet. And he's got a 4-foot-long iguana. Okay. It's in the file. We hired somebody about 3 months ago. Guess what her favorite pet was? An iguana. So we went to her and said, hey, you've got to meet Mario because he's got a 4-foot iguana. All of a sudden, she loves our company. Do you know what your employees like? Why don't you have a data sheet, put it in their file, and motivate them the way they want to be motivated? That's the key. I talked about recognition. Why do you become a 5-star employer? It's telling your employees you're recognizing them as making a right decision. Why do you become a 5-star employer? Because it tells your customers that your employers, you're recommending you. I found out the interesting thing with the companies I work with, they find putting the 5-star employer plaque on the window says more to the customers than it does the other employees. It says, wow, we're a great place to work. We're a place to have fun. We're a place to recognize. So that's the key. So those are some.
Well, Mel, we've run out of time today. And I think that was a great way to conclude the conversation today and putting out there about the recognition. And I will tell you, you've got an advocate here because it makes sense. I had a lot of experience, as you know, in running different businesses, and recognition never got the kind of attention that I've heard you talk about today. And it makes me scratch my head and say, boy, you missed a lot of opportunity. If folks want to take advantage of what you offer and talk with you and perhaps get into the 5-star program, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
What's the best what?
The best way to get in touch with you.
To get in touch with me? A recognition? I'm sorry.
Well, the best way for people to contact you if they want to talk about doing business with you.
Okay. All they have to do is go info, I-N-F-O, at Humetrics, Humetrics.com. info@humetrics.com. That's the best way.
I will leave us today by offering an encouragement to anyone that listens to this conversation that we just had to reach out to Mel. If you've got one or more employees, it doesn't matter how small you are or if you have 1,000. There is some real jewels in what he's talked about today that can really help your business be more successful in moving forward. There's no doubt in my mind. And we live in an environment today where it's hard to find employees. So who doesn't want to do a better job in keeping the ones we have and building a reputation for the ones we don't have that would be attracted to us? So great timing, Mel. Great program.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining
Anytime,
us today.
anytime, Rick. Anytime I can be helpful to you or any of your customers or any of the listeners. My whole objective in life right now is just helping people to be better. The most important decision you make is who you bring in the door, help you take care of your customers, and they help you build your business. So thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break and we'll get back to our regular programming shortly. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rick Schissler back with you. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and I sure hope you enjoyed our conversation with Mel Kleinman. Again, I believe there's a number of tips and ideas in that conversation that most all business people could gain something from. So consider what he has to say. And by the way, if you missed part of it or you'd like to review it, a podcast of today's show will be out in a couple days. You can find it here at the radio station's website, Lone Star Community Radio, irlonestar.com, or you can go to Facebook, YouTube, look for the Weekly Business Hour page, and you'll find today's show. And by the way, if you think the show is worthy and you know someone who's in business, a small business owner, please share the show with them. We pick up a lot of listeners that way, so we would appreciate if you would share the show if you find it something that could benefit someone else. Well, the second half of the show today, we're going to go to the mailbag. I promised that in my opening. The question we received, really interesting to me. We have owned a restaurant for 15 years, and we have never experienced inflation like we've seen in the last 6 to 12 months. How can we keep up and not run off our customers by raising prices every 3 to 6 months? You know, the restaurant business in and of itself has really taken it on the chin with COVID, shutdowns, all over the country. And now this inflation, which is just blowing up, and it's the food supplies, eggs are up, 20-some%. This is all this stuff, and it keeps going. And then you have supply chain issues. I think the restaurant business is right at the head of the line, or at least in the first group of businesses that have been really affected by things that have happened, particularly this inflation most recently. So we'll respond to that with some general ideas of how to survive, in many cases, this inflation. And then I'll close today's show with my One Best Consult tip of the week. Recession is coming. Is your business over or underprepared for this next big challenge? I think they'll find it interesting, create a little discussion, and hopefully a lot of thinking on the part of you, our listeners. So we're going to take our final break of the day, and when we come back, we'll start out in the mailbag. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show. With monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast. Create your first YouTube channel and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I have been told we just have a few minutes left, but I want to respond to the mailbag question we had about owner of a restaurant and the impact that the inflation that's really out of control if you look at it from a perspective, I believe, of a small business owner. I think there's several things that every business owner should be doing right now, those that are particularly impacted by the inflation, which I think in the restaurant industry, as I said earlier, really getting smacked up the side of the head, as my dad used to say, by this. And one of the things I think you have to do is, we talked about it last week, be sure you understand where your business fits in the community, understand your competition, understand why people come into your restaurant or your business. Why do they trade with you? Why do they do business? So many small businesses, I find, really don't know the answer other than my gut tells me this, my gut tells you. You know, in a restaurant, we have a perfect opportunity to interface, talk to customers, ask them a couple quick questions when we're serving a meal, into the meal. We can do little surveys on the table, but just talking to them, especially in this email came from a small city. I think probably a little more personal interaction perhaps, but you can gain a lot of information. Talk to them and then go back and record what they say, because you want to have a certain number of people to give your survey, if you will, or your research a little credibility. So this is a far fetched example to some people. Run out and hire a survey research firm. Yes, they have a lot of validity, have a lot of value, but in the small business world, that's something we just can't get our head around, or in fact, it can be costly. So make sure you understand what your market is first. And secondly, and again, obvious, do you understand what your actual cost is? You know the price of eggs went up, but do you really understand that? Do you track that some way so that it's just not in here you're getting indigestion, but to what extent? And look at your cost of other things in your business, your space, your lease space, your ownership of the space, the building. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you've got that information. At least it's current. I think what we'll find is, if we're honest with each other, is that a lot of businesses really don't know those costs. Oh, they know they wrote a rent check or a mortgage payment, but they don't know what the actual cost of operating their business. And the point is, you know these costs, then you can turn around and the third thing is you need to make sure your costs are as tight as they can be. Now, food cost is where a lot of focus is, but food costs are only a portion, particularly small portion compared to things such as electricity perhaps, cost of ownership of the building, which is either a rental payment or a mortgage payment. Property taxes, either way, you're probably paying those, whether you rent or own. So there are a lot of things to consider. So I think you need to do that. And always remember, there are people out there, for example, I was looking at a report the other day from the travel industry. Now, that industry just got shut down, basically, particularly if it had anything to do with water. Cruises just got completely shut down and are only now coming back. So if you feel the pressure, you feel like you're bad off, just consider what's happening literally down the street. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pick up with my One Best Consult tip of the week next week about the coming recession. I don't think we'll be in a recession or out of recession in 1 week, but we've just run out of time today. And I want to thank Mr. Mel Kleiman for taking time to have that conversation. I encourage you to visit the Humetrics website, make contact with Mel. He'll answer questions, but he's got a lot of good information, a lot of good services that he can provide to help you attract the right people to your business, hire the right people. He is one of the leaders, as I said earlier, in my opinion, in this country, perhaps in the world, on getting the right people to work for you. And that, regardless of your business, is the most important thing. Look for a video podcast of today's program, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of days from now on the Weekly Business Hour page at Facebook, YouTube, or right here at irlonestar.com. And until next week, stay engaged and always keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thanks.